Good Saturday morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Racine and me. I'm Jessica Ty. Earth Day is coming up on Tuesday, so it's perfect timing to talk about a building in Racine County that was designed in part with the environment in mind. It was also designed to use less energy and save money. In fact, the new Rochester Village Hall will soon be on the Energy Star list. So what exactly does that mean? Well, it's more energy efficient than 75% of similar buildings around the country and uses, on average, 35% less energy. Joining us this morning to talk about the new Village Hall is Ed Chart, Village Trustee and Chairperson of the Village Hall Building Committee, and Steve Wagner, an architect from Anderson Ashton Design Build. Thank you both for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting us.
To kind of understand just how far the Rochester Village Hall has come, I think we need to go back to the past. So tell me about the old Village Hall, how old it was, and why you really needed a new one.
Well, it was about 70 years old, I'd say. Used to be a firehouse, and then the firehouse got bigger, and then they added it for a gathering space in the back, and it was just like 3 buildings in one, and it wasn't efficient anymore.
It kind of became a hodgepodge a little bit. Yeah,
each unit had its own furnace or air, and it got to be a maintenance problem, really, because one furnace was going out or the other furnace, or it was always something going wrong.
So there was an obvious need there.
Yes, yes.
Let's talk about the new building. I know we have some pictures of the old building too. How would you compare the old building to this new nice building that you have that's energy efficient?
There isn't a comparison. It's really, it's so different. The old building had moisture problems. It just, you know, for the people working in it, it just needed to be updated. There was no room there to update. There was no room to fix anything. It was just time to move on and look forward into what we have now, which is just amazing. The boys at Anderson Ashton they did a great job.
And here's a look at the new building right now. How does that make you feel, Steve, to hear him say that you did a great job?
Well, it feels like we were able to accomplish a very significant goal for the taxpayers of Rochester.
And that's a big deal for sure. Speaking of the taxpayers and the people who actually use Village Hall, in some big cities, people don't actually go to Village Hall. Sometimes they just call City Hall. In your case, people actually go and say hello, and people really know each other. What are the purposes? Why do people go to the Village Hall?
It's just a hometown little community that everybody knows everybody, and our clerk and our assistant clerk, when they walk in the door, I would say 80 or 90% of the people they know by first name, and the people know them, you know. So it's just a little community setup where everybody knows everybody.
How many people actually work there?
There's 3 full-time employees. We have a clerk treasurer and then an assistant clerk treasurer, and then they have our public works manager, and then they have 3 contracted, our building inspector and zoning administrator, and then the sheriff's department has its own office also.
So when you first started talking about the process of building a new Village Hall, what did you immediately put on the priority list, whether it was a need or a want?
Well, there was a lot of wants. It was a matter of if we could afford the wants. We sat down with Steve and just, you know, bounced ideas off each other, and he's like, well, we can do this, we can do that, or we'd like this, or we'd like that. We put the ball in our clerk treasurer's hands because they work there.
Sure.
This is their building.
Right.
And we let them say, we want this, we want that, or we'd like this space, or we'd like that space. And then Steve took the ball and ran.
So Steve, from what they were telling you, a lot of wants, what was the takeaway? What did you feel like, okay, this is their maybe 1 or 2 top priorities?
The facility itself, I think, really needed to function on a very limited amount of employees that work there. The square foot needs didn't jive well with the number of people that were there, so we wanted to make sure that the building ran efficiently with a very small staff.
And what about the budget too? What was the budget like?
Well, we've worked with municipalities in the past, and we found that budgets are typically relatively tight, but more importantly, they have a ceiling that we really can't cross. So it really created a nice challenge for us, and we thrive on those challenges to work forward with the municipality.
Why was the Energy Star certification a goal?
Do you want to start and then?
I think as a board, we wanted to be in the 21st century. We wanted to be green, I guess is the right word, because we could save money on the lighting, the heating, you know, everything. If we stuck a little money in the beginning, building the building, we'd save money over, you know, we planned this building lasting 70, 80
Sure.
years. And we even talked to Steve about the capability of expanding, so we can go two ways if we need to expand someday without much trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Are most groups coming to you? Maybe not most, but are more groups coming to you and saying we'd like to go this route?
There are more groups that are coming to us, more in this region, talking about saving energy and saving on a per month basis or an annual basis versus the great green toys that are out there, like your photovoltaics that are on the roof and the turbines. We do buildings like that.
Sure.
We do projects like that. But we're finding that more often than not, clients are really interested in how much efficiencies we can fit into these buildings.
I explained it a little bit, but how do you meet that Energy Star standard?
Well, an Energy Star building functions 25% more efficient than a similar building in the region. We went in with the philosophy or the intent of the Rochester Village Hall to create a building that's 35%, so we raised the bar by about 10%, see if we can do it.
Yeah.
We've been tracking the building for about 14 months now, and we're finding that the building is actually functioning at about 44% more efficient. So it does qualify then for the Energy Star rating.
And we're going to talk about more on that coming up in just a little bit. So don't go away. Up next on Racine and Me, see the features that make the new Rochester Village Hall energy efficient and how it's doing on its goals considering the brutal winter that we experienced. We'll be right back. It is finally spring, but the brutal winter, yes, it is still fresh in our minds. Ed and Steve are back with us to explain how the new Village Hall in Rochester in western Racine County is already exceeding energy efficiency goals despite our terrible winter. And that sounds absolutely great. First off, Steve, tell us what specific elements were incorporated to make the new Village Hall energy efficient.
Well, I think to dovetail a little bit into Ed's original discussion about budget, working with municipalities, we wanted to make sure that we were very thoughtful about the types of technologies that we choose for the building. In this case, we really wanted to stay relatively simple. We wanted to stay with traditional construction philosophies of the materials that we typically use in construction. We're not talking photovoltaics or wind turbines. So we focused a lot on natural daylighting and how to use it and project it through the building. And the other is the HVAC system, which is the heating and air conditioning, and how do we manage that conditioned air, because it's expensive to condition the air and we want to keep it inside the building. So some of the technologies we used with the natural daylighting is the site allowed us to locate the building on an east-west axis point, which opened up a southern exposure, bringing in a lot of daylighting throughout the day. The challenge with that is stark lighting with glares on computers and things like that. So we designed solar sunshades on the southern-facing windows to control that, tinted the windows on the south. One of the neat areas that we took a close look at was on the southern face of that property. There's an existing scrub line of trees. Yeah. So we used those trees as landscaping, natural landscaping, yep, to help shade the parking lot structure, which then reduced the heat island effect, which is heating of that asphalt and then making it uncomfortable for the occupants coming in and out of the building. So it was a relatively inexpensive way to handle that.
Yeah, smart thinking. That's your business, though.
Yep. And then once the natural light comes into the building, And
let's go ahead, as you're talking, let's go ahead and put some pictures up, because we have some great pictures, just exactly what you're talking about here.
This one here, you can see the light shelf that's in the waiting area. That light shelf, once light comes in that upper transom, it's actually bounced back up onto the ceiling, so we're able to use that light inside the building. as well.
And as we go through these pictures here, this is the clerk's area, but even looking at this one, immediately you kind of see the office space, but my eyes go straight to the back where you see another window, and windows are key as we see more and more of these pictures.
Yeah.
Right, and those are southern facing, I'm sorry, the one that you see through the clerk's office is a northern facing window. And that was key because tucking the building up into a corner of the site, we're able to utilize the views of the green space.
That window just before there was in a main meeting room, and that just brought in light without having the glare light. It was so nice that you could incorporate that upper in the roof.
Right, we raised those windows way up out of sight line, so we were able to bring in natural light, but we didn't have a lot of glare light that was affecting the occupants.
Love that. What did the data show for the building's first year in service, which included, I feel like I need to emphasize this, the coldest winter in 35 years?
Yeah, it's remarkable that this building is about 30% larger than the existing building. And the data is coming back right now that it's functioning at 44% more efficient than existing buildings in the area that function similarly in an office component. So what we found that even after the coldest winter that we've seen in, I don't know, was it 35
years,
we're still saving the taxpayers about 44 cents per square foot on an annual basis. They're getting a larger footprint of building, and they're spending less money to have it. Yeah.
And how much did it actually cost to build this new building?
It was like 1.2 million was kind of our threshold. We didn't want to go anywhere over it, and we didn't. It came in pretty much right on line. So we were very, very happy with that. We could keep it under budget and get more than I think we really thought we were going to get from the start.
And when talking with people in the community, what's the bottom line here?
Oh, I think there were some people that weren't ready to have a new facility, but now that it's there, they marvel at how nice it looks. It matches the library, which is right across the street, and that was one of our problems, was to incorporate it to make it look the same as another building that was probably 60 years old. So they're warming up to it, I think, and enjoying the nice facility.
And when you hear that it's saving money, I mean, come on, as a taxpayer, that's good to hear.
Sure, and I think as an architect as well, I mean, that aside, that's a huge goal for us to accomplish. But the reason I wake up in the morning is to be able to work on a project like this. We're left with a 5.5 acre site. It had the existing library on it, an old 1902 school building.
It was one of the first school building. Well, it was the first school building, I think, in Rochester.
Wow.
And it houses the Historical Society now. Adjacent to that was an open green space and public gardens and a basketball court. So I had all these great amenities to work with right off the bat. So what we did was we tucked this building up nice and tight so that we could share the parking between the library and the new building, and then making that site so efficient that we had these expansive views then for the occupants of the Village Hall.
Well, and that's key too, isn't it? Because, I mean, it's one thing when, it's great when you're saving energy, of course, you're cutting down on costs, helping out the environment, but two, it sounds like, and it certainly looks like, from all the windows and the green space that people get to look out to, that people just enjoy being there and enjoy working there.
Yeah, I think that's true, and also what we got to do was modernize the library. We ran all the computer stuff, all the data stuff over to them so they could enjoy the more modern technology.
And part of the benefit of the project for me, actually one of my favorite things about the project, was being able to wake up in the morning and play architect and think to myself, it's not just what I've left behind as a building,
right?
It's what's left outside of that building. So we were able to make use of that site naturally as well.
I like that. That's neat. Well, up next, the cost of building green. Did the village bust its budget? We've talked a little bit about that. And how exactly is it working out for taxpayers? More coming up. Hey, if you're just waking up, just joining us now, we've been talking about the new Rochester Village Hall in western Racine County. It will soon be on the Energy Star list. Brian Fisher, Business Development Manager with Anderson Ashton Design Build, is joining the conversation now. Thanks so much for coming in and joining us.
Good morning, Jessica.
We were talking a little bit earlier about the cost of growing green. Real quickly, how much again did this cost? 1.2 million?
1.2 million.
And you had to stick to that budget.
Well, yep.
Cost always a concern. How often do people come to you and say, hey, cost is a big deal, but in the end, we want to save money. What do we need to do?
Well, I think that what you have to do is look at different principles and practices that can offer a very energy efficient building and still, not cost too much for the client. And the Village of Rochester really did make it very clear to us that they had a tight budget or a specific budget they didn't want to overdo. And our goal was then to create something that was in that budget. They also had this strong goal of trying to be energy efficient and green. And with Steve's work and some of the principles that we were able to introduce here, and then going towards Energy Star certification really got the job done for us.
Not everybody is thinking about the environment. Of course, that's great when you can do both, but sometimes people are thinking about, I just want to be energy efficient and I want to save money down the road. Is it easy to do both?
I think so. I mean, the key in all of this is to produce a building that is going to have a long-range benefit to the client. We call it total operating, building operating cost. So you have to look at certain things, beyond recycling paper within the office. We try to look at systems and design and orientation of the building that can also make it efficient and produce well over a long period of time. And that payback ultimately works well for our clients.
What types of features are people typically looking for to make the building green?
Well, normally, they a lot of times they come to us and they look at what is, they see a lot on television, like let's put a lot of photovoltaics, let's do things like geothermal heating. Now, if we can put a wind turbine in, let's do that. Those are all really nice, things to look at, but they're very expensive.
Sure.
And in order to look at a building again over long range and long term, we have to be a little more practical in what we choose to do.
And I want you to chime in on this one too. How do you think what you guys did in the Village of Rochester could serve as a model and example for other communities?
Well, we got, I think, the green that we needed to get with staying in a budget. Like Brian said, we didn't put the geothermal in or the wind turbines because it's expensive, but we got lighting that's very efficient. We have computerized system where the lights go off when they're not being used. The air and heat is in the center of the building, so it doesn't have to travel far. They just did it so that we could save money without spending a lot of money.
Do you use this as an example for other communities, or will you in the future?
We have and we will. Yeah, absolutely. Because of the limited budgets that we are dealing with, and more often than not, it's not just a limited budget, it's a fixed budget. So it's one of the first questions we ask of all of our clients, whether they're municipal based or not, is what level of green do we want to go?
What we've talked about a lot today. What do you think are the key takeaways, maybe for somebody out there thinking, I'd like to build green?
Well, I think that some of the key things to keep in mind is that going green, well, great for the environment, doesn't have to be expensive. It can be done in a very cost-effective way that has real-life benefits, as an example of the Rochester Village Hall. That's real-life examples of how being smart about how you go about being green can work. And I think in municipalities these days, that's a really good thing for them to think about, because they do have taxpayers that keep an eye on these things. And I think Rochester Village Hall is a great example of how you can do it.
Yeah, great looking building with a lot of great looking green space too. Thank you to all three of you for coming in today. I appreciate it. Good luck with the building in the future as well.
Thank you.
Up next, a way for you to help out some animals in need of a home. It is something you